Hey everyone, it's Graham from Great Off-Road Adventures and welcome to today's video. I've shot this video over a couple of weeks and we're going to talk about tyres. It's all about tyres. We're going to talk about tyre pressures, why we let them down, going to give you some general advice and some rules of thumb for letting down your tyres, what pressures you should be aiming for, and we're going to even do a comparison on some tyre deflators and compressors. So hope you enjoy it. Let's get stuck straight into it. What we've done here is I've parked the car on this rock. This tyre's still at 40 psi. I'm going to now let the tyre down. I'm going to let it down to 30, down to 20, then down to 15, 10 and 5. And what it should show you guys is how the tyre deforms around the rock. And the point I'm trying to make here is this is why I say we let our tyres down to prevent them getting damaged and to soften the ride. And obviously it lengthens the footprint, which gives us better traction so we don't get stuck or chop track. Anyway, let's let this tyre down, see what happens. So yeah, that's 40 psi. That's 30 psi. That's 20 psi, and you can already see that it's starting to wrap around the rock a little. Well, that's down to 15 psi, and you can see there how the tyre's gone spongy and wrapped around the rock, and that's why you get that softened ride when you let your tyres down. Anyway, we'll keep going. And that's down to 10 psi. It's almost fully covered the rock now. It's pretty cool. Anyway, let's go down to 5 and see what happens. Well, there you go. That's 5 psi in that tyre. The rim's still not on the ground. Probably be getting pretty close, but yeah, that rock is completely covered by the tyre. It'd be like riding on a pillow. But you can see how the tyre's deformed. With the lower pressure, it's deformed around that rock. So the sharp edges are less likely to cut through the rubber, rather the tyre deforms around it. So that's how you get your protection. And obviously you can see that lengthened footprint. That's how we get the ability to not sink in the sand and that sort of thing. We get better traction. So there you go. There's a bit of theory, and well, it's not really theory, it's proven, but there's some proven hard facts and some evidence on why we let our tyres down. Anyway, now we'll have a chat about what pressures I recommend, or what pressures I sort of use, just as a ballpark, and you guys get out there, test them, use them and work it out for yourself. So what I want to talk about to you now are 3 scenarios, 3 different tyre pressures, just to give you guys a ballpark idea on where you need to start out, or give you some idea where you need to start out with your tyre pressures, So the first one would be high-speed gravel roads. WA and Australia in general has got quite a lot of gravel roads, and generally they're fairly well maintained. You'll be able to sit on 60 kilometers an hour or upwards. Corrugations can form on quite a lot of them, and taking a little bit of air out of your tyres can really soften the ride. It means your suspension, your shock absorbers aren't working as hard, and it means that you're not rattling your car to death with the corrugations. So high-speed gravel in this car, it's pretty heavy, but you know, even if you just look at this as like a percentage based thing, I go to about 30 psi in the back and about 28, 27 in the front. Now I normally run 40 psi on the highway, so I'm taking about 25% out of my tyres to soften the ride. I can still maintain a pretty good speed, like I probably won't go over 90 kilometers an hour with my tyres at that pressure, just because it starts to build up too much heat, and that heat can really damage your tyres. It risks having a blowout. But 90 kilometers an hour on a gravel road is probably enough anyway, because over here it's all ball bearings. It's like pea gravel. It's all like driving on ball bearings. But that softens the ride with the corrugations, still allows me to maintain a pretty good speed, and saves the car rattling itself to pieces. So there's something to think about when you're on a prolonged stretch of high-speed gravel. And that's the pressure I ran when I did Great Central Road all the way through to Ayers Rock, and that's near on 1,000 kilometres of gravel. We were on gravel for 3 days, or two and a half days to get there. The other thing we'll talk about is like clay tracks, more technical, slower speed, gravelly clay tracks. There I'll go about 25 psi back, 20 psi front, and that'll be the same whether it's wet or dry, because on those rocky tracks you don't need a long footprint like you do on the sand, but you do need to soften the ride and give yourself some extra traction. And if you're going to be slipping around in the mud, there's rocks and there's roots, there's that sort of thing, you need to soften your tyres to give your tyres that bit of protection from getting sidewall cuts, that sort of thing. And the last sort of scenario would be sand. Now, sand can be hard and it can be soft, and it can be anywhere in between as well. So in WA, we generally have fairly soft beaches. But there's places like Bremer Bay and Esperance where they're pretty firm. But for starting out, I'd go to 18 psi all round on sand as a loose rule of thumb. You can't normally go too fast on sand, so you can let your tyres down that bit lower. When you get to really soft sections, I'm talking like Warren Beach, Bornholm Beach, Corkup Hill, Jaeger Up Dunes, where you've got those really big, steep, sandy climbs, you will not make it up at 18 psi. Or if you do, you're just going to completely carve it up, wreck the track for everyone else. You got to go lower. So I'd go down to 15 psi, and at times I've even had to go down to 10 psi. And this is a very capable car. Even though it's heavy, it's got plenty of power and it's very capable in the sand, but you do have to go low. So on reasonably sort of, you know, not moderately soft sand, let's say 18 to 15 psi, then when you get onto the really soft sand, or you've got, you know, really steep, soft, sandy climbs to get back off of the beaches, you probably need to go somewhere between 14 to 10. So with my car, on a normal sandy beach, let's say like up around Lancelin Way when it's not too soft, or down around Bremer, some of those beaches, or the sand tracks around Lake Jasper where we've just been, I'll go to 18 psi all round. When I go on the really sandy beaches like Bornholm Beach, you'd have seen me do it earlier this year, I had 12 psi back, 10 psi front, and that was a pretty comfortable, good number. You do need to be aware that when you let your tyres down to probably below 14 to 12 psi, you do increase the risk of rolling a bead off of your tyre. Now, it's not a massive issue, guys. They're pretty easy to repair as long as you've got a good compressor. But the single biggest thing that'll stop you from rolling a bead off of your tyre is to drive your car with a bit of common sense. Don't go onto the beach and go and do these big donuts, don't turn too sharp, that sort of thing. If you just drive it gently, drive it with a bit of common sense, you won't roll a bead off. To date with this car at 10 psi on all those beaches down south, I've not rolled a bead on this car. So there's something to think about and some numbers to play with. Like I said, this sort of advice about tyre pressures is pretty general. I've given you an idea what I use with my car. Your car is obviously going to be different to mine. It's going to have different power, it's going to have different size tyres. That can mean either going lower or not needing to go as low. But it's something to start out with, and you know that those three sort of things, the high speed gravel, the more technical slower speed clay gravel tracks and sand, are probably the three most common forms of four-wheel driving out here and what you need to alter your tyre pressures for. Anyway, hope you found that information helpful. Now let's get into a bit of a comparison on some tyre deflators. So for our comparison today, we're going to let tyres down first. This is the gauge that I pump my tyres up with. They're all set at 40 psi according to this. I checked this and my ARB deflator at 15 psi. They're both 15 psi. And so I set my Stauns at 15 psi according to these two. So that'll be the comparison today. We're going to let down one tyre using this. It's got a little air bleed valve on it. And then we're going to time how long it takes to let down a tyre with the easy deflator, which pulls the valve core out. And in fairness to the Stauns, to make it a fair comparison, because these obviously work on the theory of screwing it on and then putting all the others on whilst it lets down the tyres. It does all four at the same time, this does one at a time. In fairness to them, I'm going to let down all four tyres with the easy deflator, and I'm going to let down all four tyres with the Stauns, so that it's a fair test. So your overall tyre deflation time from 40 psi down to 15 psi. And then we're going to use the two compressors here. We're going to pump up the back two tyres with my compressor from 15 psi to 40, and we're going to pump up the front two tyres with the Bush Ranger Pro Air, which is my dad's compressor, and time how long it takes to do that. So let's get stuck in. I'll start with the old slow faithful ARB tyre inflator gun with the bleed valve. Alright, let's start with the ARB tyre inflator using the bleed valve. So start. Alright, there you go. At about 15-16 psi, it took about, let's say, 4 minutes 20 seconds for one tyre. Anyway, let's go and get the other one, which is the little tyre stick, and let's see how that compares. Well, there we have it. We finished with the ARB tyre gauge inflator, and we're moving on to my little slime stick. I normally use this to check my airbags, but we're going to use the back of it here to deflate the tyre. I just did a little reference check on the two tyres, and it reads 40 psi on my inflated tyre and it reads 15 psi on my deflated tyre. So this pretty much reads the same as all my other gauges, so I'm going to use this during the test. Let's get stuck into it. Alright, ready, set, go! There we go. 15 psi, 2 minutes, 21 seconds. Alright, now we get on to the feature of this, which is the comparison between the Stauns and the Easy Deflator. I'm going to do one tyre with the Staun down to 15 psi, and we time how long that takes. I'm going to do one tyre with the Easy Deflator and time how long that takes, so it's all comparable. And then I'm going to pump all the tyres up again. I'm going to go for 4 tyres with the Easy Deflator, 4 tyres with the Stauns, see who the winner is. Alright, here we go. Time how long that takes. There we go. So that's the Staun from 40 down to 15 psi. 3 minutes 54 seconds for one tyre. To be honest, I expected quicker, but where Stauns make up the time is obviously all 4 are all running at the same time. Let's go and use the ARB deflator on the last tyre and see how quick it is. Alright, now in fairness to the test, I'm going to start with the deflator off of the tyre. So I've still got to screw it on, take the valve out, and then start letting air out. So we'll see how it goes. All right, it's started. Done. There we are, we're at 15, 16 psi and we're at 46 seconds, so a little bit more if we had a bit more, I'd take a bit more pressure out. There you go, a bit more accurate. 15 psi, 50 seconds. So this thing is a lot quicker. So here we go, it's going to secure these to my main battery, which obviously gets charged by the alternator. We're going to use this one first while the battery still has a good bit of charge in it because it's a smaller compressor. So being fair to it, I don't want to run it on the battery that's a bit flatter after my big compressor's run. So here we go. Getting close now. There we go. 7 minutes 45 seconds to do the front 2 tyres and 40 psi. Alright, so this is my ARB twin with an air tank. Now I've got mine hardwired and installed next to the drawers, and I've had this for a couple of years and it just keeps going. So this is one of the best compressors to buy, I reckon. Yeah, it costs a lot of money, but they are so quick, and hopefully we'll see that now in the test when we do these back 2 tyres. on. We better go turn it on. There we go, done. 1 minute 50, including a false start. Done. Come look. 40 psi, 3 minutes 50 seconds. Same amount of time it took to do 2 tyres with the small compressor. Or it took to do 1 tyre, we've done 2. Well, here we are. We're going to do the last bit of the test, and that is compare all 4 Stauns against using the ARB tyre deflator on all 4 tyres. So I'll go and get the timer and we'll literally start it from here to finishing back here. All 4 Stauns from out of the bag on the tyres, back to here, back in the bag, and that's when I'll land the timer. Same with the ARB tyre deflator. I'll start here, screw it on, let the tyre down, do all 4 tyres and finish back here. Let's start. Well, there we have it, all the Stauns are on. Just got to wait for the tyres to go down and I'll take them all off. This is one of the big benefits of the Stauns, is you can put them on, they do their own thing, you don't need to tend to it the whole time. There we go, all 4 Stauns back in the bag, tyres down at 15 psi at 4 minutes 54 seconds. 4 minutes 54. Anyway, pump them back up, get the ARB compressor out, see how it goes. Well, here we go, we've got the ARB tyre deflator now. And well, we've talked about it enough, let's just get into it. So, I'll get a timer out. Start. Go. 4 tyres, back to the camera. There we go, back here, all done, 4 tyres, 40 psi down to 15, and it's 4 minutes and 8 seconds. So the ARB tyre deflator, quicker than the Stauns by a little bit. But there's pros and cons to each of them, and I'll run through that now. Well, that shows you the results, but let's talk about the pros and cons on each device. So we'll start with the ARB deflator. Obviously the quickest item on the test. Pros, quick. You can set the tyres to any pressure that you need. Cons, price. You know, the ARB one is a little bit more expensive. There's cheaper no-name brands, you can buy them online. They do the same thing, they remove the valve out of the tyre and let the air out. That's how it's so quick, because you know, it pulls the valve out, more air can come out, it's a bigger hole. But that's also a big con, because you've got to spend all that time screwing this onto the tyre, unscrewing the valve, letting the air out, and it's, you know, a bit of a hassle, and then, you know, your valve goes in and out a lot of times and it can get damaged. So that covers the pros and cons on that. What do I think? This is the one I use all the time. The pros, the speed, and the ability to set it to any pressure depending on the situation far outweigh any of the cons for me for using that. So that's the ARB tyre deflator. Talking about the Stauns, little brass ones. Pro, very, very convenient. You just screw it on the tyre, it lets the air out, and you just unscrew it and put the valve cap back on. You can do all 4 tyres at the same time, as you'd have seen me do. They're still pretty quick. Like, time it takes these to do 4 tyres is only a little bit slower than it takes the ARB tyre deflator, you know, the easy deflator, to do 4 tyres. So time-wise, it's negligible. The biggest con with these is they're set to one pressure. You can't alter your tyre pressures. So what I've done, I carry both of these in the car. The Stauns I have set to 15 psi, which is my normal go-to beach pressure here in Western Australia. Beaches here are pretty soft, you got to go a little bit lower on your tyres. So I can pull up to a beach, put these straight on, and then go and yak to people whilst they let their tyres down. So there's uses for both, and that's why I carry both. Out here in the forests, gonna have to go with the ARB tyre deflator because 15 psi is too low for the forest tracks. The other con with these is if they rattle around, the locking rings can come loose and all your settings can get misadjusted and go out of adjustment. And then you don't really know what tyre pressure you're setting your tyres to. So if you got a set of Stauns, it's really worthwhile just checking them every so often to make sure they're still set accurately. Keep them somewhere where they're not going to rattle around too much. So that covers off the Stauns. Well, let's talk about the stick object here. I think they call this a pencil reader, or it's more a tyre pressure gauge than a deflator. But obviously, as you've seen, we can use it to deflate your tyres by pushing the valve in. It's not too bad. It was, you know, it wasn't as the slowest on test, but it, you know, wasn't the quickest either. It's a good option if you don't go off-road all that often. What I keep this in the car for is to just quickly check my tyre pressures, check my airbag pressures. So, you know, this is quite a handy little object to keep in the car. And if I just got to make some small adjustments, I'll probably just use this. I keep it in the door pocket. It's easy to reach. And, you know, these are dirt cheap. You can pick them up from anywhere. This is a really good option for someone that doesn't do a lot of off-roading. So yeah, something to keep in mind. You don't always need to spend big dollar to get something that's usable. Now let's talk about, you know, the ARB tyre inflator. It's obviously got the fitting there to use the compressor to put air in the tyres. It's not really designed to let your tyres down with. As you'd have seen, it was really slow. Like, really slow. If I had to do 4 tyres, I probably would have thrown this in the bush. Gone and grabbed a stick and just pushed it on the valve. That being said, if this is all you got, well, you can use it. There's a gauge there. Just be patient, let your tyres down, use the gauge, you can get an accurate reading, set them to any pressure. So, you know, there you go. There's a bit of information on 4 tyre deflators in a sense. My pros and cons, my thoughts on which ones I use. Well guys, I really hope you found this video helpful. I hope you took a bit of advice away from when I talked about tyre pressures, and I hope you found the little tyre deflator comparison that we filmed down on the river a bit interesting, because it certainly wasn't, well, it was the results I was sort of expecting, but I thought it'd be a bit different. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please hit like, please subscribe to my channel, please put a comment in the videos. It really shows your support. It helps me keep making my videos, helps them reach a broader audience, and if you like them that much, feel free to share them, put them on your Facebook page, share them around. The more people that view them, the better. Anyway, we'll see you next time with another video. Thanks for watching.